Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am Dr. Claudia Albers, Planet X research and professional physicist. And today I'd like to bring to you another one of my articles. This one is entitled Chemtrail Effects. Earth's atmosphere is now opaque to sunlight at cloud altitudes. Now the satellite photograph below shows clouds forming shadows. This is not a normal phenomenon and can only occur if the layer in the atmosphere in which the shadow boundaries appear is opaque to sunlight or visible light. So we see these shadow boundaries, they do not seem to diverge and therefore indicate that the real sun is likely to be the source illuminating the clouds. However, clouds should not form shadow boundaries at all because the atmosphere is supposed to be transparent. The fact that these shadow boundaries form shows that the layer in which they are forming is almost completely opaque. Only a huge amount of suspended particulates or extremely dense pollution can give rise to such a phenomenon. This also seems to be a small orange light source within the atmosphere. And notice as well that these clouds that seem to be at a different altitude above the altitude of these clouds is not forming shadows. And this may indicate that the atmosphere at that altitude is transparent, but lower down it is not. So it seems to be some bright orange light here, and I don't think it can come from the sun. That's probably indicative of a light source being inside the atmosphere. Now, the atmosphere closer to the ground seems to be more transparent than the atmosphere at cloud altitude, as shadow boundaries do not appear closer to the ground unless there is fog, which makes the atmosphere opaque. Shadow boundaries do not seem to appear when the sun is high in the sky, but are very prevalent when the sun is low in the sky and sunlight is radiating horizontally through the atmosphere. And here we see cloud shadows. You can see the clouds are producing shadows on the ground. But there are no shadow boundaries between the clouds and the ground because the atmosphere here is transparent. Here we would have the sun high up in the sky shining downwards and creating these shadows on the ground. Now, shadow boundaries are usually seen close to sunset when the sunlight is moving through a higher portion of atmosphere. But the atmosphere should remain transparent even then, and no shadow boundaries should be forming. Light levels cannot explain it. Even a dim light will produce a shadow on a wall or on the ground without any shadow boundaries appearing. Shadow boundaries are now extremely prevalent in the Earth's atmosphere when the sun is low in the sky and are just not normal. You can see this shadow formed by this table inside the room. There are no shadow boundaries because the atmosphere here is transparent. Now here we see shadows from an ancient drawing. The length of the shadows in the image indicate that the sun is low in the sky, but there are still no shadow boundaries in the air because the atmosphere close to the ground here is transparent. This may change if there is any fog, and fog does occur close to the ground, but in the absence of fog we have nothing to make the atmosphere opaque. However, the whole atmosphere should be transparent to light, except for a few instances when fog occurs, and it obviously no longer is. We cannot have a huge section at high altitude having produced fog, and yet this seems to be what we have. We have an opaque layer in the atmosphere that's giving rise to these shadow boundaries formed by clouds. So these shadow boundaries indicate the atmosphere in that region at that altitude has become opaque. We can see also some what looks like pink-like illumination here. Not red but pink, but I talk about that in other articles. Now, shadow boundaries we see here are radiating horizontally, obviously produced by these clouds, but they should not be there. They are there because obviously the atmosphere is opaque to visible light. Now, fog is actually a form of cloud and it occurs close to the ground. It is extremely unlikely that high altitude fog would form amongst normal clouds. This opaque layer therefore seems to have been artificially created by chemtrail spraying. And you may look at my book on chemtrails or article 218 entitled Chemtrails, Sun Simulators and Stellar Cores, a multi-level conspiracy for more details. Now, as a result, the Earth's atmosphere at cloud altitude is no longer transparent but opaque to visible light. This, what we see here, is very prevalent close to sunset when the sun is radiating horizontally through the atmosphere. This can be seen very, very often, which shows that the atmosphere at cloud altitude has become opaque. So this opaque layer is obviously producing these shadow boundaries, and it would also make the surface of the Earth difficult to see from space. And in addition, it is reflecting heat back towards the ground and thus creating a greenhouse effect. And you may look at the article entitled Chemtrails, Increased Greenhouse Effect Indicating a Weakening Sun. That's article 223. And it would, this opaque layer would, in addition, as I said, make it difficult to see both whatever is above that layer. So from the ground we would not be able to see very well what's above that. That will hide the objects that have invaded the solar system. It also makes the Earth's surface difficult to see from outside the atmosphere. So in conclusion, chemtrail spraying seems to have been used to form an opaque layer in the Earth's atmosphere. This layer will make seeing objects outside the atmosphere difficult in the same way that it would make seeing the planet's surface from outside the atmosphere almost impossible. The layer will reflect light and thus create a greenhouse effect. This is Dr. Claudia Albers, Planet X physicist. Thank you for watching.